if it's not going to be in the NFL, if it's not going to be football, right? Like you can still take that into your relationship. For me, with my wife, teaching my children, helping them grow, with my good friends, with my now colleagues. The NFL is quite a bit of a bubble, and you're in the limelight, and there's this magnifying glass on everything that you do, and everything is sped up. It does translate into so many different aspects of life that are going to take you all the way to whatever that day is, that's the last day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Hey Where'd You Go podcast. I'm your host, Collin, and we have a special guest this week. We have former Missouri tight end Chase Coffman. He played in the NFL, and now he's in the world of finance as a financial advisor at BMG. Chase, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Collin. I appreciate you having me on, and it's a beautiful, sunny day here in Kansas City, Missouri.
Well, I also have to mention the epic mustache. Chase has the mustache. I have the mustache. For those of you watching right now, or if you're just listening and you can't see either of our wonderful mustaches, this was not planned. This was completely impromptu. I just hoped that we would be on the same page.
Yeah, and we both have a little bit of stubble in there too. Not completely clean shaven. I love it.
Your dad played in the NFL. He was a tight end. You said for the Packers. He played for the Chiefs, Minnesota. Was he your football influence? Is he the reason why you got into the sport?
I would say yes. Knowing that he played, right? Like me and my siblings, we watched a few like old VHS highlight tapes of him back in the day, and his Green Bay highlight films. I don't know that there was much on his Chiefs or Vikings career, but we were all pretty into sports at a young age, all competitive, all enjoyed different kinds of games and coming up with games in the backyard, all over that property, with our friends. And for me, at a pretty young age, my dad wouldn't let me play organized football until 6th grade, because that's when he was allowed to play, at the age of 6th grade. And so, at an early age, though, I felt like, football is my love, is my passion. That's my favorite of all the sports, right? But we played soccer, we played basketball, we played t-ball.
What was it like catching touchdown passes from your brother Carson, your younger brother, I should note, back in high school? Because having the opportunity to play with family or siblings doesn't happen often.
Yeah, it was a really neat experience. Looking back on it, I think, it's so much more special than actually in the moment, right? Like you don't sometimes see like how rare something like that can be. When I got to high school, I wasn't able to actually have him as a starting quarterback until my senior year. But I remember my junior year, I had been a first team All-State receiver my sophomore year, and we went to this team summer camp, and we were playing a few other teams. Our starting quarterback had gotten hurt. And my brother, being a sophomore, he was the starting JV quarterback, so he got to start against a pretty good team that we were scrimmaging, and we had some struggles, and he threw some passes, not the most accurate to me, and I was getting on him quite a bit. And at that time, our head coach, he was like, go easy on your little brother. He's not been in this situation yet, and he's doing the best he can, and he doesn't need his big brother, beating him up, even though, that's kind of what he's grown up with. And he ended up his junior year, my senior year, and then his senior year when I was gone, he was the starting quarterback on the varsity and went undefeated as a starter in high school, which is a pretty neat opportunity for him. Won 2 state championships and had the opportunity to go to Kansas State on a scholarship.
Again, I just think it's neat that you had that opportunity. And like you said, in the moment, you're not the only one. You don't think about how special those moments are. There are plenty of moments, not exactly like the one with you and your brother that I've had in my life, and you're in it, great, this is awesome, but it's not till after or some time passes where you really understand the beauty of those particular moments. And I think it's that way by design.
I agree. And I mean, now I think that it, like, even more so, my wife and I have 3 little kids, and sometimes we don't enjoy the moment always of, maybe not sleeping or getting things messy that we didn't want to get messy. And it's like, you know what, like, no, like, we've been through this before, not the exact situation, but like, just what does it really hurt? What's really important in our life? Not things, but the relationships and the things that we're able to teach each other and learn from each other.
So you play with your brother. You had a ton of success in high school, and you were getting recruited by the likes of Iowa, Kansas State, Kansas, Nebraska, Florida, Michigan State, and of course, Missouri, the school that you ultimately committed to play with. What was the recruiting process like, and did you enjoy it?
Everybody likes to be kind of praised for what they enjoy doing, especially. And it's a really neat process. It's also kind of like a stressful process, especially if you got, I guess, even if you don't have options because you want the options. But I think I had 9 Division I offers whenever I said, like, all right, like, I want to stay close enough to home where my parents can still come to my games, where my brothers and sister could still, I could still be involved in their lives. And I narrowed it down to Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas State, and Missouri. And then from there, to Kansas State and Missouri, and then ultimately just to Mizzou. I think it's important to, if you want to, as a kid, if you want to come back to the area that you're from, football, whatever sport you play, is going to be done with at some point. And, if that's where you want to eventually call home, or you think that's a possibility, right? Like, I think that it's really important to be known in the area, or at least, have connections in the area. Or, like, being in Kansas City, I have a whole network of Mizzou alumni.
You made a great point that when you're making these decisions where you should attend school or something in nature, you should almost have an idea of where you want to be geographically. Although, Chase, how many of your 17 and 18-year-old kids are thinking that?
I mean, hardly any, right? Like, your goal is, and similar on the, picking a major, right? Like, what 17, 18-year-old kids going to pick the major that they're going to actually go into that field, right? Who's ready for that life decision to pick, hey, I'm going to go into this for the rest of my life? But like, which again comes back to, like, hey, if you can have people that are positive role models, positive influences in your life to tell you these things while making those decisions, man, what a great head start. Most kids going to college on a scholarship is, hey, I'm gonna make it pro. School doesn't really matter. Like, I'm a I'm a student athlete. Um, that can be a lot of the mindset is, student comes first. Student comes first is what they say, right? I'm a student athlete, where, you got the scholarship because you're an athlete. You just go down a path to get a degree. And hopefully you get to pick that by some means, that something that you're interested in. And hopefully you graduate and get that degree, because at least it shows that you've worked hard enough to put in the work, even if it's the secondary thing, right? Which I don't think it should be, just because of the odds of making it to the next level. But you've put in the work to at least get the degree, right? Like, that's a form of just saying, like, look, I know how to be responsible. And back to sports, if you have a good coach, he or she is able to teach you all those valuable lessons, the character, the work ethic, even the morals, like not cheating, right? All these things that translate well into anything, but are not necessarily like the thing that you're going to put on the role model or the resume of, hey, I have really good character. hey, I made it through 2-a-days. I made it through condition, I ran, so many 110s or, this and that, and lifted and squatted this much. And, but the underlying values of all what it takes to do all those things well is what really translates.
I completely agree. And especially nowadays with the glitz and glamour and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and, hey, I'm committing to Arizona State. They have these sick new unis and they switch them out every single week. Don't get me wrong. That is the perfect kid response to having such a great opportunity like that. However, it's also important to think about the overlooked ideas. Like, what's the character of the coach? Does he care about my academics? Does he not care?
Mm-hmm. Does he care what kind of, for us, what kind of man that I grow up to become? Am I going to be a responsible man, in whatever job that I go into, whatever career? Am I going to be a respectful husband, a good father, right? Like the things that really matter in life. Not just, can you get me wins? Can you get me to the NFL? That does matter, but if nothing else, the rest of it is sustainable. The NFL is never sustainable. The joke in that is, NFL stands for not for long, and the average career is 3 years. And so, is going in with the hopes of, I'm going to have a double-digit year career, I'm going to be a Hall of Famer, right? Like, and trying to pick a college on that.
That's a lot. That's a lot of your future hinging on wobbly ground.
Yeah, and for a lot of kids, again, at 17, 18 years old, they've not had a lot of failure in their life to get to that point. Just because of probably just the pure athletic ability that they have to even be, in the conversation of getting a Division I scholarship.
When you went to Missouri, Coach Pinkel, Missouri was still in the Big 12 at the time. You played with the likes of Chase Daniel, Jeremy Maclin. You guys were insane. I think it was the 2007 season. You guys went 12-2, played Arkansas in the Cotton Bowl, won the Cotton Bowl. What were those experiences like?
All across the board, we had a very selfless team. Guys that were doing their job, that were keeping each other accountable, that were working hard. And, obviously those two are two of the most talented on the team and great leaders, Chase especially being the quarterback. And that's why he's still playing today. But, all across the board, from the athletic director and Mike Alden, Gary Pinkel, the whole coaching staff, the whole strength staff, the whole equipment staff, the training staff, everybody had bought into the system.
Chase, to this day, you still hold numerous University of Missouri records. You were an All-American, and you won the John Mackey Award for Best Tight End. Winning an award like that, what was that moment like for you? Can you recall the exact moment in time?
Yeah, so at the time, the college, it may still be held down there. I know not recently because of COVID, but it was the award ceremony was held down at I think like Wide World of Sports in Orlando, on Disney's property, and they didn't invite the tight ends that were up for the award down there for the award ceremony for whatever reason. but one of my good buddies and teammate, Jeremy Maclin, he was up for the Biletnikoff Award for wide receivers, and he had so many guests. I was like, what? He gets to go and miss some of our bowl practices while I get to stay here.
You get to stay there and work your butt off. Jeremy Maclin gets to go dress up in a nice suit and potentially receive an award.
Yeah, so we got it, and he, was gracious enough to invite me as one of his guests. So I got to go down and sit in the audience with his family, which was fun for the award show, but they didn't, honor me or anything at the show in particular, and it was just before everything. Um, our media relations director kind of got the calls of, like, dang, J-Mac didn't get the Bolitnikoff. I think it went to Michael Crabtree that year. And yeah, Chase, you won it. You won the Mackey Award. That's super cool. Uh,
I love it.
and, and
Hey,
yeah,
Macklin didn't win the Bolitnikoff. Oh yeah, Chase, here you go. You won this award.
yeah. But then, after, I think in January, maybe mid-January, they had the like a little awards ceremony up in I think Long Island, New York, the Nassau County Sports Commission sports banquet where they honored me uh, in front of a group up there, and my parents and I got to go up there and spend the night up there, and that was the first time I'd ever really like been in New York, which was pretty cool. City doesn't really sleep, and we after the ceremony we were like, hey, the driver that we have, can you take us around the city and kind of check it out? And we went up to the top of the Empire State Building at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and like kind of got the full experience. And there was literally people. I mean, it wasn't packed like during the day, I'm sure, but there was more people than were in Peculiar out walking around and acting normal.
That's amazing though that you were able to take in that moment in a place like New York with your family. But again, it kind of goes back to what we were saying previously, though. I'm sure it was one of those things in the moment. This is cool, this is great, but maybe you don't realize how special that moment is in particular until afterwards.
Yeah. I feel like I'm still kind of taking in bits and pieces of how special that is, right? Like it is the only individual position award won at Missouri. And that, I mean, how cool is that? But I mean, could I have done it without the other guys that I had on my team? I doubt it, right? Which makes it even more special if like, man, we had something that was really cool, really special. And really like it shows you, there's people that have the talent and the success, whether in sports or business or whatever, but sometimes it's just not the right time and the right place for them, right? And sometimes they don't reach that potential because of that. Not that they didn't have it, but it also gives you that, like, if you can understand it, it gives you that urge to, like, hey, keep pushing, right? Because that it'll come. Um, and something that anytime I get the chance to speak or talk to people about, life lessons, I always bring up this Bible verse that my brother sent me kind of while I was going through a tough time of, I think maybe some injuries and stuff like that. But it's Galatians 6:9. It says, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up." So, I mean, I related it to sports. Like, don't give up working out, putting in the effort, studying film, doing all the things that in the long run has made people successful in this sport. Because if you stop doing it, there's not a chance. But if you continue doing it, right, that opportunity may come along where you finally get to prove yourself.
I tell people all the time, a lot of young broadcasters and journalists reach out to me on LinkedIn and seek out advice. And I always give them any piece of knowledge I give to them because I want to see other people succeed and do well, and of course at the end of it all, pay it forward. So many people get jealous when they see somebody straight out of college, and I'm just strictly using this as an example. Straight out of college, they get an opportunity to go to New York City right out of college. You have the person that's worked in Wyoming, Louisiana, North Carolina, all over the country, and they're still not there yet, maybe feeling jealous. And my thought process behind it is don't be jealous. Like, find out, like, good for that person, be happy for that person, because sometimes people do just have a little bit of luck and there's nothing you could do about it. Hit up that person, congratulate them, find out what they did to get to that point.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good way to look at it, and I feel like my mindset has changed to that too. Earlier in my playing career, in the NFL and even in college, it's like, what the heck? This guy over here, he's getting paid like I'm way better than that, right? And that's similar to what you were just saying. But like, you know what? Like I didn't have anything, like what can I control about his situation, right? Like figure out, good for him. If he isn't good and he got a good contract, like good for him,
Yeah.
right? What can I do to better myself?
It's interesting to think about because it's not as black and white. You know, it's easy to get caught up with and go, and we've all done it. I've done it too. Oh, this person, how is this person? I'm better than this person. But I think the older and wiser that you get, you have to lean on the mindset that we described, and you have to do it ethically and morally, because the more time you spend perseverating on that person or that thing that didn't happen, you're pushing off the inevitable.
And sometimes, they didn't get there by doing it the right way. So it's not sustainable, right? It looks like they did all the right things and just got lucky, right? And maybe they did. Maybe it's just, the right time, right place, and they got their opportunity. But more often than not, I've learned a lot that, good things don't come easy and they don't come quick. So it takes consistency. It takes hard work. It takes effort. It takes, you know, it takes putting in the hours. And, if it doesn't, and it's not in your heart to do anymore, and it's not a passion to do anymore, then, pivot, change directions, go find something else. But don't complain that, you that somebody else, you should be where they are.
Well, also another thing that takes a lot of hard work. These mustaches right here. That's a lot of hard
Yeah.
work and dedication as well. I don't want to lose sight of that here, Chase.
Yeah. I couldn't really grow that great of facial hair, for probably the first 26 years of my life. And then, after that,
Chase, after Missouri, you ended up being drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the third round of the 2009 NFL Draft. And this is the part that I find so fascinating, again, from previous conversations. I always want to know, like, where were you on that particular day? I've had people tell me they were sleeping, they were out and about with friends. Where were you when you were drafted?
yeah, so I was sitting in my parents' living room, watching the draft. So that particular year, 2029, um, the draft was on two days. So it was the first and second round on Friday night, and then third through seventh that Saturday. And I remember, I won the Mackey Award. I was an All-American, census All-American tight end, thinking like surely I'm going to have the opportunity to go in the first or second round. I broke my foot in our bowl game my senior year, so I didn't do the combine. I went to the combine. I didn't work out. I didn't work out at our pro day at Mizzou, and so I didn't. It was like kind of a toss up in the air of like where am I going to land in this thing? What team am I going to go to? And Cincinnati was not on the radar. I remember getting a call from a number I didn't know, and it was actually an old high school friend that I didn't have their number in my phone. And I was like, is this the Chiefs? It was an 816 number. Like, are the Chiefs going to draft me? They had traded Tony Gonzalez to Atlanta. I was like, this is what a dream come true. The hometown team. How cool. They didn't end up drafting me. Oh, hey, what's up, Marlon? How you doing, man? Good to talk to you. Hey, like, I'm sorry, I thought you were somebody else. uh, and then I remember, getting this 513 area code, and it's like, who is that? Picking it up is Coach Lewis, Marvin Lewis, and the Bengals, and I was like, kind of caught off guard, like, okay, like, what now? What now? Like, they want me, they drafted me. where do we go from now? Is the very last pick, number 98 in the third round. And I'm like, okay, Cincinnati, Ohio. I know where it is, that it's in Ohio, but like where in Ohio is Cincinnati? And so trying to find out as much about the team and the coaching staff and the offense coordinator, Carson Palmer, Chad Ochocinco, Cedric Benson, Chris Henry. Man, we had a pretty explosive offense. Who are the tight ends that I'm going to be competing against for, playing time? And then just kind of like wrapping my head around like, okay, what's the next steps? And it was a pretty neat process. And I feel like, again, at the time, I didn't really enjoy it for what it was. How many people get to get drafted into the NFL? But for me, it was a childhood dream, and it was kind of an expected thing.
Do you think that you had the mindset of you got drafted, you shared the excitement, but you've been such a hard worker your whole life, you automatically went into hard working mode? Because all of a sudden you're trying to figure out, where is Cincy exactly geographically? Who am I going to be competing against? Who's on the team? To me, that's already scheming.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, like that's kind of what I had done throughout the recruiting process too. Going back to that, what's my opportunity there, and how do I go about that? Right? Like, how do they plan on implementing what I do well into their offense? What's their thoughts on that? And I mean, to get into that, I don't think there was a lot of communication on that. Getting there, and you can see some of my struggles in 2009 Hard Knocks series, where I got cussed out just about every day in training camp.
I'm sure that was very enjoyable.
Yeah, at the time I was like, holy cow, this might not be for me. I have a signing bonus that I got, and that might be it, my NFL career. And it was tough. I remember at one point there was, I think, 5 days in a row, maybe a full week, where me and Darius Hill, who was another rookie, actually from the Kansas City area, went to Ball State. We were the only two healthy tight ends on the roster, because the three veterans had all gotten hurt. They were out, two of them season-ending injuries, and the other one was out for a week. We were taking first team reps, second team reps, third team reps, also doing scout team on the special teams reps. Like, we didn't have a break during camp, and that was the point that I was mentioning, where like, golly, is this really for me? Like, they might kill me. I ended up not even suiting up one game that year as a rookie, which sucked. Like, coming from the All-American, the Mackey Award, all this great stuff, to not even getting a chance to suit up. You have 53 men on the active roster, and 47 of them at the time suited up for game day. So you had your 6 inactives each week, and I was always on the inactive list, and that really ate me up. That was kind of a dagger to humbling dagger. But just like, man, I don't get to do this thing I love. That was a really tough first year, and my whole career ended up being similar to that. Being up some weeks, down some weeks, getting a little bit of playing time here, a little bit of playing time there, getting cut. And I finally scored my first touchdown in Tennessee in year 6. That was a really cool opportunity, but golly, it took me 6 years to score my first touchdown.
How did you work through those hardships, Chase? Because again, so much success in high school that translated to Missouri. At Missouri, the same thing. You end up winning the Mackey Award, best tight end in the entire country. Then all of a sudden, you get drafted, you make it to the NFL, a childhood dream, and then all of a sudden it just flattens out, and those opportunities that you had before essentially disappeared.
It was really tough at first, especially just because of that, being young, kind of expecting that success. And I mean, looking back on it, man, I think everybody goes through that, whether it's, in junior high or at the end of your professional career or somewhere in between. Not many people get to walk away on their terms and have the career exactly the way that they wanted. About a week before the first preseason game, a guy in Atlanta got cut and or got hurt in that first preseason game, and I got a call and went down there for the second preseason game, the third preseason game, and then they cut me after the third preseason game. I'm thinking like, man, this is getting cut twice in one preseason. And usually after the third preseason game back then, when you had to cut from 90 to 75, that was like, these guys are not going to they're not getting a chance. They're, you're if you get cut that early in training camp, like there's a good chance that your career is over with. And I was thinking, that's probably me. And they ended up calling me back after the fourth preseason game and offering me a practice squad contract. And it was the first time where I felt where my style of play really fit with that offense and the team and the coaches, and like they wanted me to succeed. And I felt like I was doing really well in practice, running scout team, working hard, and showing up early, staying late, doing all the things that that prove that hey, like I'm trying, I'm giving effort. I want to be available for when that opportunity comes. And the coaches started saying that, hey, like it's not if but when. Like you're gonna have an opportunity, so keep doing the things you're doing. And one of the guys that was ahead of me, he got hurt against the Saints in New Orleans. And I remember sitting there with my wife at home in Atlanta, at our place in Atlanta, and thinking like, oh, this is my shot, right? Like I feel terrible for Tommy. He got hurt, but like this is what I've been waiting for, an opportunity, right? You don't wish for people to get hurt, but you prepare for the opportunity because there is 100% injury rate in the NFL. And I remember getting a call the next day from two of my friends that I had played with, one in Cincinnati, one in Tampa, that said, hey, they're bringing us in for workouts. I remember
you're like, come on.
Are you kidding me? Like, this is what I've been waiting for. They've told me that I'm like, it's not if, but when. And so like, this is it. And you guys aren't practice squad eligible. So what are they bringing you in for? And I remember being like really pissed off about that. And then kind of later that night, just laying in bed with my wife and praying to God, God, if practice squad is all you have for me, and you're going to teach me something through this, like I give this to you, right? I don't want to put football in front of Jesus Christ, in front of my relationship with Jesus Christ, because then I'm making that my God instead of the God that I really say is my God. And so I remember just giving that up to him, and after that point, I ended up getting signed to the active roster the next day, and they didn't sign the two guys that had given me calls. But after that point, I got cut another 7 times maybe throughout my career, and each time it was so much easier because it was like, hey, you know what, you have done what you can control. And then, the business decision that the coaches, that the GM, that, whoever makes those decisions, sometimes it's not about who's the actual best player. Sometimes it is a business decision. And, don't take it personally, right? Like you still come to work, working hard and preparing for those opportunities. And, that's kind of the point where for me, it turned over to, it was a little easier to get cut. It still sucked. And it was still kind of like gave me some anxiety, and, having to move and pick up and go to a new place maybe. And all the things that come along with that. But after that, it was like, all right, like it wasn't because I am a failure.
And I think that's the difficult part, is to understand when you give something everything you have, it doesn't matter what the outcome is because you tried your best. Now, it's easier to say that mantra as opposed to believing it, but as you just noted, you said it got easier to get cut, and I know it still sucked. if you said it didn't suck, I would be like, wait a second. But at the same time, you got to understand, I did everything I could. I laid it all out there. This is not a reflection of me. That's the difficult part as you're going through something like that, to realize it's not me. I did everything I could.
I mean, one of the things that my mom always told me doing chores around the house is, I hated that, but she said, relate this to sports. Like God asks you, do everything as if you're working for the Lord. So, make everything your best work, whether that's cleaning the toilets or, running a route and catching passes or tackling, whatever that is, you got to do it with your full effort and know that God is pleased with that, right? Because, if you don't do something with full effort, what do you expect? Why would, going back to what my dad said, if you want to be good, here's what you can do to be there, to get there. If not, don't expect to win. Don't expect to be better than that guy. And that's why it does hurt so much, is because you put so much effort into it. There is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Going back to what I was talking about in training camp, that week of running every single rep, right? Like, it's hard, and I put a ton of effort in that, and to not see it pay off is tough. To get cut after stuff like that is like, golly, was it worth it? It's hard to get up and say, I'm going to work this hard again.
I think you have to assume and hope, and again, I know you're a big believer in faith, that although it didn't work in that particular sphere, the football sphere, that it will work in some other portion of your life.
Yeah, that's completely true, right? Like if it's not going to be in the NFL, if it's not going to be football, right? Like you can still take that into your relationship. For me, with my wife, teaching my children, helping them grow, with my good friends, with my now colleagues, continuing to do those things. Where the NFL is quite a bit of a bubble, and you're in the limelight, and there's this magnifying glass on everything that you do, and everything is sped up. Number one, because you're young, and you don't, for most of the guys, you don't have that much life experience at that age. And hopefully you can get it or be surrounded by it so that you can make wise decisions while you have the opportunity to. But man, it does translate into so many different aspects of life that are going to take you all the way to whatever that day is, that's the last day.
That's the big takeaway. Yes, does it suck that all the blood, sweat, and tears didn't translate on the football field the way that you had envisioned? Of course, it sucks, 100%. But again, at some point in time, and for you, it seems like it's translated to the financial sphere, that all that blood, sweat, and tears hasn't just gone for nothing. It's amounted to something, and something great, where you're helping people like myself, your average Joe, and you're helping athletes become fiscally responsible, which is very important. To be financially literate is very important, and everyone needs to understand it at some point.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things towards the end of my career that I got a lot more interested in. Again, going back to faith and and the Bible, God tells you, and whether you believe in Jesus or not, right? Like, I think that you should be a good steward of the things that you have. And one of those things that I was blessed with at a young age because of the NFL was money. So I needed, started diving into, how do I understand how money works better, right? What's the best thing for my money? And really like looking into what that is, and through that process, fortunately and unfortunately, uncovered some stuff that my financial advisor had been doing that wasn't in my wife and I's best interest. And it wasn't, a killer, but it stung a little bit, and it stung enough to say, like, man, this is something that, there's a lot of people out there that didn't probably live as frugally and save as well as we had. and that it would really, knock their feet out from under them if something like this had happened to them. And so, not just athletes, but everybody, I think, needs to be in a position where, like, hey, let's take control of this, and we can be somebody that is trustworthy for you to partner with in helping you, not only be wise with your money, but learn that process yourself. And so, kind of through that, sat with a few different advising groups around the Kansas City area because that's where we wanted to call home. Both of our parents are around here. But yeah, sitting down with a few groups to see kind of which group was a fit, right? How they worked. And ultimately, the group that I picked was BMG Advisors here in Kansas City. And we're partnered with LPL Financial, who is home based out there in California. And they kind of allow us to run this business as our own small business with all the support of the large company. And that's something that I really liked because we had the compliance piece, we had the support piece, we had, if we don't have the answer in-house, we have the people to be able to get that. And that's something that I really like because, coming into this early, and I'm still, right at just over 2 years in, I don't have all the answers. If anybody tells you they do, you better run.
Yeah.
So, but there's, 4 of us advisors in the group. And if we don't have the answer within the group, like, we have the support to go get that answer outside. And that's something that I wanted everybody that comes along, with the relationship to me to be able to have for their own well-being in, making sure that, like, they are taken care of. Because I don't have the answer to take care of everybody, but, I want you to trust me and at least being able to go find that answer.
You shared an article on LinkedIn. It was a CNBC article about the potential that college football stars could make as much as $2.4 million per year. As a former D1 college athlete, when you just hear that figure thrown around, Chase, imagine yourself as an 18 or 19-year-old and you're making almost $2.5 million a year. What are you doing with that money?
I think most of them are probably doing things that they shouldn't be doing, right? Like, hopefully it's different than this, but what life experience, what business experience, what money experience do you have at that age? Right? Like, I think the number of athletes, right? Like, we've all probably seen or heard of the 30 for 30 of broke, right? And the number of athletes that go broke, I think the percentage is in the 70 something percent that within 2 years are broke or divorced of their professional careers. And it again, back to the Bible, it talks about not coming into money quickly because you don't have all the learning to support it up to that point, right? Like, most careers, you get out of college, unfortunately, probably with a little bit of debt, and you're working, this graph up, your earnings is going up, where the NFL is like, you have this huge opportunity right here, and then obviously it's going to end. Hopefully you make enough. And I shared another one, and that somebody had put on LinkedIn about Travis Kelce, and he talks about burning through his rookie salary, rookie contract, which is probably a few $1,000,000. And luckily, he's one of the few that have gotten that, those next couple contracts to really have learned the potential consequences of what he did early in his career, right? The majority of guys with a three-year average don't get that chance to go on and make up for the mistakes that they made young. And so it's crucial for schools to find trusted people that they can go to for these athletes when they start making those decisions, to really help them, with the long-term opportunity that they have with that kind of money, if it is that kind of money.
I think that's where guys like yourself come into play, because starting from the beginning of your journey, it's always been forecasting out into the future. Okay, if I attend the University of Missouri, this is the geographically where I want to be, the Missouri network. It takes an approach like that, because when you're 20 years old, you're making $2.5 million a year. You want to go to the bar, you want to go to the club, you want to buy a
Yeah.
sweet
You want to
car.
chase the flashy things, right? And there's a lot of temptation. There's a lot of opportunity for for young athletes, right? Like you've seen all these things on TV. You've seen you know attractive people. You know the clothes, the vehicles, the vacations. Like you have access to all of it, right? And for you to have the self-control to say no, right? Because it is fun, it is enjoyable, you know, but again, like, is it sustainable? Does it bring long-term joy and, you know, uh, enjoyment? No, like I mean, there's a few people in the world that can sustain that kind of a lifestyle,
But not but
but
but not a majority of us.
yeah, not a majority. So the majority, like I was talking to some people the other day that may have the opportunity to go into the draft where it's like, hey, let's look at what you have guaranteed, right? And we'll go off of that first. Let's hope that you get to the contract that everybody wants. But until you get there, let's pretend like tomorrow is not guaranteed, all right? Like, because what if a freak injury happens? Something crazy happens like that. What are you going to do if you've bought the biggest, nicest car for yourself and, and your brother and your mother and father, you bought a house for yourself and your parents, like, hopefully you get that second contract. But, going back to my career, you know, I had a pretty great college career and, was a third round draft pick and I made it 8 years, but I got cut 12 times and it was a lot of tough times, right? It took a lot of effort to stick around for that long and just the right opportunity. And, if you're not being wise with your money, and that can be really demoralizing when you get to the end and you're like, ah, dang, well, I guess this car's not worth what it used to be, but I got to get rid of it because I got to pay for, these other expenses that are needs.
What's your favorite part about being a financial advisor?
Once you can convey that to the people that you're talking to, and they start to buy into the process of, hey, I see your vision in, the value of financial planning. Because it's not just the investing piece, that we do, but the whole financial plan of like, hey, these are your end goals, right? And those will probably change, but let's plan for those right now, and then continue to stay up, and meet and check in as your life changes, right? To make sure those are still the end goals, because we set those and then we work backward from there, right? And here's what you need to do to hit those goals. And sometimes it's like, hey, you've already done a great job, and you don't have to do that much. Now that's not a normal circumstance, but like most of the time it's like, hey, look, here's what you need to do to get there, right? Just like my dad said when I was young, if the NFL is your goal, here's the path to get there, and it's not going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to think like, why did I even set those goals? But in the end, and it takes time, and you have to trust the process, compound interest, right? Like, you don't see like the big result, right away. You don't see it in the first year, you don't see it in the first 5 years, in the first 10 years, but you get to your 20, 25, 30, if you were able to start early and be consistent, like, holy cow, the payoff is like, it worked. It did pay off. And I was consistent, even when it felt like, man, I see these other people enjoying this and that, but, uh, like is it worth it now to give it up later? And that's the question that, some people say yes to, some people say no to. So again, kind of back to your question, the most enjoyable part is when you see people, like, it clicks in their head, like, yes, like I see that vision, right? And then that's when, like, okay, yes, I've portrayed that well for them, like a teacher, right? Like, some teachers know the world, but they can't teach it well. And for me, trying to get better at that part of it, and conveying the message well, and in a way that somebody can buy into it.
Would you say that all the blood, sweat, and tears from your football career, and I know it was tough in the NFL being cut so many times, would you say that all of that hard work has gotten you to where you are now as a financial advisor?
Oh, for sure. Without a doubt. I mean, it took a lot of perseverance, and again, a lot of consistency, and working out after I got cut when it seemed like there's not an opportunity to get signed this year. There may not be another opportunity for me to continue my career. Um, but sticking with it and being consistent, right? Like, and like we talked about earlier, the values, the character, the work ethic, all the small things that go into doing everything well, right? Like, I was able to learn that through sports, and can now continue that, into financial advising. And financial advising is a career that takes kind of a while to take off, and really be, um, I guess what I've heard is, kind of in the first, like, 5 to 10 years, you work a whole lot harder than what you get paid. And then after that, it kind of flips, because you've put in a whole lot of the base work, right? And now you've done it consistently for, however long it takes you to get to that point, that people trust you enough to say, like, hey, you've proven that you are trustworthy in this. And that's, the long-term vision that I see. And again, also something that, praise the Lord, me and my wife have done well enough to with 3 kids, supplement, what we're making now, because we did well with the money that we earned throughout the NFL. I don't need to bring in a big salary, or try to push sales, or commissionable products or stuff like that, because you know we we were surrounded by good people that helped us to live within our means at an early age.
Do you have any regret when you think back to your NFL career about how things panned out? Why those executives and coaches didn't see what you brought to the table, and what you knew you would bring to the table each and every week?
I mean, sometimes it makes me wonder about that, kind of what their thoughts were. Regrets? No, I don't think I have any regrets. I think it did, it's turned me into the man that I am today. And had I gotten a Travis Kelce like contract, right? Like, I probably wouldn't be in this business, this line of work. Um, yeah, maybe, but probably not. I don't know what I would be doing. And it has caused me to, um, kind of like everybody this past year, and the media out there, like, look for the truth, right? Like, it's hard to find truthful news and truthful media, and it takes a long time to discern and read enough articles even to get, like, a middle ground view. And so, like, it caused me to, really dig down and look into my own finances more. And and again, realize that a lot of people need this service. And I have a platform to help people with what I've done, and still be a part of the community, and give to charities, and speak life into young men. and I mean, and young women for that matter, and different opportunities to speak, different podcasts like this.
If you could go back in time and talk to Chase Coffman during the NFL days, during that time when you're getting cut consistently, what would you tell him?
I would go back to college even and say, continue building relationships outside of football. You've got a platform because of the success that you and your team have had, right? Like, and continue to build those relationships, reach out, whether it's just a couple times a year with a few different people, just to kind of learn more about them and about their industries and build those relationships, because those are the things that are going to last. Football is going to end, but those people will still be around and remember how you treated them, long after football is gone. And so I think that I did a pretty good job of that. I think that the teams that I was with did a good job of giving us opportunity to do that, but I wish I would have done a little bit more of that.
Chase Coffman, everybody. Chase, I appreciate you taking the time to chat. I know we went in deep quickly within the first probably 2 or 3 minutes, which, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the point of this podcast, is to have those conversations that, unfortunately during your playing days and if I'm local media, we never get those opportunities in passing. So again, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Collin, and thanks for having my sons on too that crashed in.
For more interesting stories with former athletes, check out Hey Where'd You Go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a video version on YouTube. Plus, don't forget to check it out on social media. That's at Collin Kushner on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.